What do you think about pre-mined currencies such as XRP, and how would you address its skeptics?
I love XRP. I literally do this every day, all day.
Some say there's a centralization of it, like how I believe the owner has like a very large scale of it. People who pre-mine maintain a specific amount.
I mean, look, we own 60 billion XRP, the company. I get it. I don't know that Bitcoin and Ethereum is that much more decentralized in terms of holdings. Right? I think Vitalik has a fair bit of Ethereum, right? So does Joe Lubin. The early Bitcoiners have tons, right? I mean, I saw some study the other day that like 98% of the holdings are 10% of the wallets in Bitcoin and Ethereum, some crazy thing like that. So it's a little more private, right? I think ours is a little more public, especially because the company holds so much. What I would say is it puts us in a very interesting position with respect to economics, because number one, so my job is building liquidity. One of the ways you do that is you lend XRP to people so that they can provide liquidity in markets. If you want to provide a bid and an offer in a market, you have to have cash to buy something. And if you want to sell it, you have to have the thing to sell. Well, the only way you sell something is either own it or you borrow it. In the Bitcoin space, it's really hard to borrow stuff. It's expensive, 10 to 15% annual interest rates, and it's hard to find really chunky loans. With SRP, people can just come to us and be like, hey, I want to borrow some SRP. Not anybody, but really professional market makers. It's something that we can do that nobody else can do, right? In that flow that I described where somebody's buying XRP, moving it, and selling it, we can guarantee the rates. So everybody always asks me, well, but you're bridging between two fiat currencies. Like, you have to do two hops, there's two spreads you're crossing, the liquidity's not great, it's volatile. No problem. I will pay you the difference. If you're going across this rail and it's expensive, I am very much incentivized to make sure that you do that. Because the more liquidity, the more utility, in theory, over time, the more valuable XRP will be. So in the short run, we're very much incentivized to make all those frictions go away. So I don't see our holdings as a detriment, and I definitely do not care if there are skeptics. We're skeptics about everything. But it puts us in an incredibly powerful position to actually activate the use case.
Okay, so these are some questions about speculation for the future. I know we touched about this in the beginning of the conversation. Some claim that successful Lightning Network, which is Bitcoin's scalability issue, which they propose as a second-tier solution, would destroy the value of many altcoins, including Ripple. What is your take on that?
Yeah. Lightning is interesting because it activates Bitcoin's original use case as a direct form of payment. If you've noticed, if you've sort of picked up on anything that I've been saying, you've noticed that I have not talked about buying XRP with anything. Right? I haven't said you're going to buy a car or a house or coffee or anything. The reason for that is, generally speaking, you buy things inside of a domestic system. So if I'm talking about buying something with XRP, what I'm talking about is replacing the domestic system's fiat currency, which I don't think happens, again, back to guns and jails. So that's not occurring. This speaks to fixing that problem, direct merchant acceptance and transactions. I don't know. I don't see that happening, right? So the use case that XRP is we're trying to activate and I'm trying to grow liquidity for really is one of bridge asset. And when I talk to large financial institutions, their main concern, so put it to you this way, like, if you go from 2 hours to 2 seconds, that's a massive improvement. If I'm going from 2 seconds to 2/10 of a second, yeah, on a scale issue, it might be the same, but to a financial institution, then it'd be like, 2 seconds is good enough. I got it, it's okay, right? So, I don't think you need to get to like instantaneous movement for these things to catch on. The key will always be liquidity, and I don't necessarily know that this helps out liquidity.
Okay, I guess we'll find out.
We will, yeah, we'll find out.
Being developed now. All right, so this is a big question on everybody's mind. What do you expect from regulators in the upcoming years?
You know, the analogy that often gets bandied about with crypto is the internet. And it's a network, it needs to grow. And if you look at the way regulators regulated the internet, they didn't regulate the technology, they regulated the use case. Right? The bad uses, or buy drugs, or sell pornography, or sell people. Like they were like, no, we're not doing that. I think you're going to get the same thing here, right? They're not going to regulate the technology, but they're going to basically regulate the on-ramps and the off-ramps and the things that you can do with it, which I think is the right way to go. The challenge will be coordination, right? So it's not a coincidence that Asia, I think, is a place where this is taking off. Japan has been wonderful with regulation, so it's very forward-looking. But Japan has one financial regulator, right? In the States, you got the SEC, the CFTC, FINRA, the OCC, and all the state regulators. That's a lot to coordinate. So what I hope we see is more coordination and thoughtful regulation, especially across countries, because it is a global technology.
Okay. So this is an interesting question that I thought of. What would the future of inflationary what is the future of inflationary cryptos, and how would a Fed coin or a bank coin? A lot of these countries are creating their own national bank coins or crypto assets, or even a Visa coin if they got into the market. How would that likely affect Ripple or XRP? Do you think they're addressing the same thing?
So, like, you think about a Fed coin or a bank coin, you get the exact same benefits of a digital currency in a domestic system if all of us have the ability to open up an account at the Fed. Like again, the technology solves for trust, but you don't have a trusted third party to keep balances. All this stuff is really a database with amounts in it. When you don't have a trusted third party to keep that, these technologies are great. The Fed keeps our balances, we trust them, we think it's okay, we don't think that's going anywhere. If they wanted to activate a digital currency like use case, all they would do is let us open up accounts. It's a pain in the ass for them, because they have to manage 350 million accounts. So I don't necessarily see that happening. A Visa coin, again, we already trust Visa to move our money around that network. I don't know what in the world they would do with digital currency. So like these kind of really specific use cases, to me, is just marketing. It's just like somebody in some boardroom is like, we don't have a blockchain project. Throw some blockchain on it and see what happens. You're like, okay, we'll see. We held a symposium with 30 central banks in October, and they all sort of talked about this domestic use case, and they were all kind of testing out different blockchain solutions. And some of them were like, there's some benefits, but the kind of risk reward or the pain to benefit ratio of ripping out our domestic system and replacing it with some sort of a blockchain system is just untenable for a marginal increase. So again, the pain points that the tech solves, especially XRP, really revolves around moving money internationally where we don't have a bridge. The domestic stuff isn't that interesting.
Okay. I think I asked that right. Okay. All right, this is an expensive question. What is your vision of the utopian future of cryptocurrency in its conjunction with tax, government, society, finance, and trade?
Sure.
Like, what is this all about?
It's a light question, no biggie, right? Really easy. Super simple. But first of all, I don't know if that the cryptocurrency vision is utopian. It depends on what your vision of utopia is. I quite like paying taxes in public schools, and I would love a little healthcare every now and again. So I don't mind modern civilization. I think it's pretty cool. It's not perfect, but a few things are.
Yeah, like how would a mature ecosystem look?
I think, so Brad Garland, our CEO today, was at a Yahoo Finance symposium, and he basically said, look, this is going to grow from within the system, not from without the system. The technologies are not going to destroy things. They're going to replace certain parts of economies or different players, but you're not going to wake up one day with some computer running global monetary policy. You do not want that. Like, that's like, Star Wars-y, Transformer-y, what's the killer, Arnold Schwarzenegger? Yeah, that's like, that stuff. You don't want that. You really don't. And that, I don't think that utopian society we're going to see, certainly not in our lifetime. I think we're going to have governments and the Fed for a while. And hopefully they'll get better at what they do, not worse, right? The goal is for them to improve. By the way, if something's not perfect, you don't destroy it. You can help it get better, right? And hopefully that's what this technology is.
All right, so what are the future developments of Ripple and XRP to come?
Yeah. There's a lot going on, most of which unfortunately I can't talk about, but I think you're going to continue to see the network around that software component that we're building, our Xcurrent and XBO, those are the two enterprise software pieces. That's going to continue to grow. You're going to see continued growth in XRP partnerships, more corridors. Right now we're doing the States to Mexico. That'll expand. You'll see that next rapid corridor, kind of like the choice of where you can send money really grow. And then the liquidity for SRP is going to really expand. I think more than the value of the price, I look at where we are in terms of liquidity with respect to not only crypto but fiat as well. And really the goal is to make XRP as liquid as the traditional fiat currency. So if you see that, if you're watching that CoinMarketCap volume number continue to grow, then you know I'm doing a good job. If it doesn't, they'll probably fire me.
Okay. I think we have a few more questions.
Yeah.
So I think we might have touched on this a little earlier. Do you believe Ripple will negatively affect Bitcoin and Ethereum?
No. I get this a lot, like, do you hate Bitcoin? Do you want to kill Ethereum? Dude, what did they do to me? No. Everything's fine. The pie is very small right now. The goal is not to kill off competitors at this point. The goal is to continue to grow, educate, really teach people about how incredible the technology is, whatever it is you want to do with it, find uses for it, and really, like, when you look at, again, when we was talking about the number of cryptos on market cap, these are technologies, they solve problems. Like, if you care about this stuff, dig deep into what the tech does, figure out how it does things differently from, how Ethereum is different from XRP, how it's different from Bitcoin, and that'll lead you to the path of, okay, this is what this is gonna fix. We're fixing different things, so I'm not worried about hurting those guys, and I don't think they're worried about hurting us.
Okay. I mean, but some people feel that Bitcoin can achieve a global currency status and kill out the middleman. Is that something that banks are afraid of? Are they retaliating against?
No, I don't. I don't know that they're hard for me to say what banks are afraid of, and I certainly haven't heard of any banks outside of this recent. They're not letting people buy stuff with credit cards. Which, by the way, you should not be buying crypto with credit cards. Do not go into debt to buy crypto. It is very volatile, right? And you mess up, and you could adversely affect your life for a long, long time. It's very, very dangerous stuff. Not because it's bad, it's just young and early. And young and early things, like teenagers and little kids, they do crazy stuff. So go easy. No, I don't know about this utopian Bitcoin. I just don't see it. Why would that happen? How? Most people in the developed world, we live pretty good lives, and we pay for stuff in a million different ways, and it works. And it's not like tomorrow we're going to wake up and your house is going to be 3 times as expensive, and your shoes are going to be 10 times as expensive. We've had 2% inflation for the last 25 years. Our Federal Reserve is doing a pretty damn good job. Not perfect. They were asleep at the wheel in 07, they messed that up. Okay, things happen, let's learn, iterate, get better. Again, the solution is not wipe you away and put a cryptocurrency in the middle. Okay, yeah, that's gonna work out real well.
All right, I think we have sorry, a few more questions.
Just a few.
A few more questions, then we're gonna get it up to the open Q&A. This is a big question that a lot of people have asked, and they've requested this. I don't know if we can talk about,
sure,
whatever you can.
Yeah.
What is your take on Coinbase, along with its seeming conflict of interest with Bitcoin Cash? Talk about that for a second, as well as do you believe Ripple will eventually be added to Coinbase? I don't know if you can talk about that. And the last thing is, if so, what steps can be taken to ensure that there isn't some sort of insider trading with Coinbase?
Right. Okay, yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. So, yeah, so I don't know if there was insider trading with the Bitcoin Cash thing. I hope not. Coinbase is a leader in our space. They are the most enterprise-grade exchange really at the moment. They're the biggest exchange. I hope that they're grown up enough not to allow that to happen, and that they're tightened up enough. But there are some real benefits to that. And I think the ICO community is starting, and I said I kind of dismissed ICOs a little bit, and I was probably a little too dismissive. It's amazing to be able to raise money from everywhere on the planet. Right? It's great. But that has some drawbacks. Right? And the drawback is you get too much money early on, you might not care about the project anymore because you're rich. So I was going to try to do this to solve the problem, make some money, but I have so much money, I'm disincentivized to continue to build the project. That's not a great incentive. Right? You also have to do it on your own, even if you care like crazy about this project. And you raise $50 million to do it, but now it's just you and your buddy and maybe know what you're doing? Do you have a network? Do you have connections that connect you to people like businesses that are going to use this tech? No, it's 3 guys in a room somewhere, or 3 women in a room somewhere. So raising money from intelligent investors is really good because it gives you structure, expectations, right, and a network. Right? So, I think ICOs are going to have their place. We're going to regulate them. It's going to be wonderful, but it's not necessarily for everybody. And I would say if you're looking to raise money through an ICO, you better absolutely adore that project, and you would do it for free forever, because otherwise your incentives are not quite aligned.
Okay. And that wraps up the formal questions. At this time, if anybody has any individual questions that they wanted to ask based on the conversations with Miguel, they can start forming a line by the microphones.
So I wanted to ask, the internet uses HTTP protocol, TCP/IP protocol, and there's only one protocol for the whole world. Is that what Ripple's vision is? That you're going to be the banking protocol for the whole world?
So look, I don't know if you guys noticed, I use XRP and Ripple very differently, right? I never call XRP Ripple because it gets really confusing. The company, the asset, it gets all over the place. So the company, that enterprise software that it's building is a replacement for SWIFT today, right? And SWIFT is the way that banks send money across the world today. It's the protocol for that. So we are definitely trying to replace that protocol. Right? That's not what XRP is trying to do. Right? XRP is trying to be a complement to fiat, sending money across borders, if you will, fiat to fiat. So it's trying to be a bridge.
Like facilitate settlements.
It'll facilitate
using
settlements.
XRP.
Yeah.
And if I own XRP, I'm providing liquidity by trading XRP.
If you're trading it, yeah. If you're just holding it.
What am I getting for that service of providing you liquidity?
Well, if you're a liquidity providers post bids and offers. That's their job. They sit here right here and they just get it. So that's what they're doing. Speculators get to speculate. Right? That's what they do. And then you have hedgers like this money services business and these banks, which I was talking about, which then use that liquidity. Right? So a healthy market has kind of those three legs of a stool, I like to say. And everybody gets something a little different out of it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey Miguel,
Yeah.
I want to say thank you for coming to our school.
Thanks for having me.
It's great having you here.
Thank you.
I was an early investor into Ripple back last year, and I was reading the white paper, and I was also looking at the fact that you were talking about how XRP and their blockchain are really separate entities, correct? If I'm not mistaken.
No,
the XRP side of it and the cross-border payment side of it is completely separate.
Very different, yes. Enterprise software
Okay.
does not have a distributed ledger in the traditional sense.
Okay.
It does have a protocol underneath it, but that's separate. Inspired by the architecture of XRP.
Okay.
But it's different.
Right. So the question I have is when you bring
it to the mic to make it a little
the question I have is when you bring up liquidity and with 55 billion XRP tokens locked up by Ripple and are put into escrow contracts that are released every year for 1 billion each year,
and 1 billion each month.
Each month.
Yeah.
So
That would be
it's
a
not
long time to do this.
and it's not being sold off to exchanges, it's being sold off to private investors and any partners that you have in Ripple. And that worries me, because it's completely different than Bitcoin, because Bitcoin uses computational power in order to receive it, but you guys are holding the XRP tokens in-house.
Right.
So that's where my question lies, is the liquidity factor of that. And whether when you dilute them into the market, you can bring down the price into
Yeah, so as an investor, I see why that's a concern.
Right.
We'll unpack that a little bit, because there's a lot sort of going on there. So I was a big proponent of locking up the XRP, partly because I thought that markets were really afraid of the possibility that we could dump all that into the market. Right? If we got into trouble, we might sell it. Even though we would never do this, but markets aren't rational sometimes. So I said, all right, let's figure out a way to lock this up and remove that fear. Right? Truth is, in order to activate the use case and increase the liquidity of XRP, we don't need the 55 in one full stop. Right? So $1 billion unlocks a month. Today, that's $700 million bucks. 3 weeks ago, that was $3 billion a month that we have at our disposal to incentivize market makers, partners to invest in things, but we have ample liquidity to do that. The reason it's locked up is so that people don't fear us and don't fear the possibility that we're just gonna dump it, even though that would be insane. So it's when I look at our holdings and I look at how the rest of the spaces, we're very different, right? The Bitcoin world, the Ethereum world, we're very, very, very different. We are trying to solve one problem. We have this group of partners who do things in a very regulated and slow way. So what that means is that it takes time and money, and it means that our economics are a little different, right? So we can do stuff with those holdings that other folks can't in the Bitcoin and the Ethereum world. So I see it as a huge benefit. I get why people get concerned about that.
Yeah.
But I would say in the long run, we don't want to have all that XRP. That's not the goal.
The goal is what? Can you repeat that, sir?
The goal is not to just get rich off of XRP.
Okay.
The goal is to solve problems for customers. The software, by the way, makes money, right? And that's where the real long-term business model is transactions across our network and us getting a little bit of piece in that, a little piece in that enterprise software business, right? If we have 20, 30 trillion dollars a day flowing through there, that's a real business. We need the XRP in order to activate that, but the goal is not to be like, oh, well, we're gonna get XRP to be worth $10 and then sell it all and go
Right.
along the beach, and that'd be useless.
And the last question I have is, are you guys trying to create something that is mainly going to be used for like your clients, which are banks, or is it more for people that don't have access to a bank? Because there's billions of people who have no access to a bank or live far away from one.
Right.
So how will you be, going into a market which is unbanked?
Yeah. So I don't know if you saw, we had a partnership with the Gates Foundation. The Gates Foundation is using another protocol. We have 2 pieces of open source software that we work with. One is XRP, and the other one is ILP, it's the Interledger Protocol. So the Interledger Protocol problem, or the Interledger Protocol project, is focused on sort of expanding the network to get folks who maybe don't today have a ledger, which is really what that means, right? You don't have a bank, that means nobody's keeping track of your value, to basically connect smaller ledgers, right? So in a lot of businesses where people don't have bank accounts, they have cell phones, right? And you can just kind of separate it for your cell phone. Interledger connects all of that, right? So that's a separate project. What we're focused on is definitely the enterprise use case and solving pain points for large financials.
Okay, thank you.
Hi Miguel, thanks for being here tonight. So with regards to the inefficiencies of the correspondent banking system, can we expect banks in 2018 to start replacing the whole idea of pre-funded vote show, no show accounts with actually XRP as opposed to other fiat currencies?
Yeah, I think in 18 when we see it start happening, certainly that's our vision, that's our goal. There's some concerns around security and custody. Right? Today we don't have any enterprise-grade custodians yet, but we're getting there. So you need that, and then you need tools for hedging. Right? One of the reasons that liquidity is important is because it allows then people to hedge risk. Right? We're getting there. Right? So you need those 3 things in order to really get that use case. We can do some things to mitigate those challenges. The XRP helps. Right? So we can loan it, we can embed options, we can look to structure interesting derivatives, right, where we're the counterpart. The regulation is really the challenge. But I think in 18 we'll see it. I think in 18 we'll see, I'm not going to say it's 100 banks, but I think we'll get to a point this year where we'll see a few banks using XRP in real bank fields.
And also, do you think XRP has a future of being a bridge asset for digital assets?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Besides just the fiat idea?
Definitely. In fact, some of the market makers that we work with now, they use it to close ARBs. So, if there's a huge ARB on one exchange because somebody's selling, a large amount there, they'll convert out of whatever fiat or crypto into XRP, move it over somewhere, and then sell it there. So it's happening because it's faster.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi Miguel, this is Max Entropy.
Oh!
So, So my first question is, was Codius created to compete with Ethereum? And how was that?
Cody's might have been before there.
Okay, no, okay. So do you-
I don't know the timing. I wasn't, so Vitalik slept on Stefan's couch for about 6 weeks back in like 2013. So Stefan's our CTO. He's our like wonderkind. He's our genius. He's the one who came up with IOP. And Stefan knows Vitalik very well. So I think there was a lot of collaboration there between, not like, months of work between Vitalik and Stefan, but just a lot of mind melding. And I don't think it was a coincidence that after Vitalik left Ripple, he didn't work for us, but he kind of interned for a while, just kind of hung out. Back in 2013, this wasn't very structured, right? It was kind of a bunch of people in a room dreaming, really. I think, Vitalik and Stefan, probably mind melded a little bit. They went off and did similar things. So Codius wasn't meant to compete with Ethereum per se, but it was, I think, meant to do similar things. And Codius is not dead, by the way. I think we may have some appetite to do some stuff with Codius, but in a much more, I think, defined way than the.
Yeah, that was my second question. My last question is, it's a little relevant, but do you think Bitcoin will ever decouple with altcoins or vice versa?
Yeah, I think the altcoins mostly will disappear. That'll be a real decoupling. Night. Yeah, you don't need all these things, right? I think the space will, as long as Bitcoin holds that #1 position, will always follow Bitcoin. It has to, right? People trade baskets of this stuff. Not everybody, you don't just trade one thing. Well, you'll see the decoupling, I think, won't be because Bitcoin does something different, but it'll be because the other ones start to do different things. You get more players, right? Like, if I start to see, like another thing that will tell me that I'm doing a good job is if I start to see the volatility of XRP come down a little bit. And even if it follows Bitcoin, the beta will shrink. Then I'll be like, okay, we're building enough liquidity in here where we're not just getting whacked by Bitcoin. So yeah, I think as the markets mature, the dynamics between the coins will change significantly.
Thank you for your time. My question is, the Ethereum blockchain right now is considered one of the most powerful blockchains in today's systems in the space now. How do you, this is more from your perspective, how do you see that with other ICOs adopting this technology, and does it affect Ripple short-term, long-term, or if any, at all?
No, I mean, you can do ICOs on the XRP ledger, and I think there's been one or two. It's not something that we're involved in as open source, so people are more than welcome to do that if that's what they want to do. I think the ICOs cause a challenge for Ethereum, right? Because the network gets a little bogged down, and you need that capacity, especially if you're pitching Ethereum as the settlement layer or the gas for these smart contracts. Then you need a little room, you need a little elbow room. And if you're like bunched in because everybody's doing CryptoKitty ICOs, that's a challenge. So I think for Ethereum's sake, I hope the ICO stuff starts to calm down a little bit because I think it's hurting the network.
So when do you think that banks and financial institutions will start to standardize blockchain technology? The second question is, do you see blockchain as a tool that will assist the accounting field, or do you see it as a technology that will displace a lot of workers in that field?
So again, when you think about what blockchain is, it's just a database. It's a database that no one entity basically tracks, right? So you don't have to trust that the holder of this database, didn't give me the dollar but gave it to you. So when you talk about sort of banks standardizing blockchains, there are some use cases, securities lending, there's a few more maybe around supply chain management, things that where, again, you don't have to trust a third party. There may be collaboration there, maybe a few financial institutions go ahead and say, okay, let's use this one thing. The Hyperledger with Fabric, IBM's got this project, so that will likely happen. In terms of the accounting field, I think the thing that would put accountants out of business is if we simplify the tax code. That would really put accountants, artificial intelligence may hurt accountants. I don't necessarily know that blockchain is going to hurt accountants. But that's just my opinion. But to be honest, I haven't really thought about it. It's not very informed.
All right, just one quick question, like a little bit out of hand.
Yeah.
So I see that IBM is pushing their own platform in blockchain. What do you think about their platform?
Hyperledger.
Hyperledger.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Ethereum is a little scattered. IBM, I was on a panel with the head of innovation of IBM, and this woman said, he said, we got 157 use cases for our blockchain product. Like 157 use cases. We're trying to do one thing, and it's really hard. Man, I don't know how you're gonna do that. And it's like, yeah, we have one. Where we're tracking the freshness of flowers across the Atlantic. What? What is that? Right? So, you know, look, IBM's a consulting company, they have to make money, everybody wants to talk blockchain, every financial institution in the world wants a little blockchain. So they do that. I have no idea whether or not it's gonna give it a shot.
Thanks a lot.
Actually, I'm actually CPA, so that's a good question. Yes, I do think that blockchain might put auditors out of business as a third-party validator of trust is kind of placing us.
Sure.
But anyways, my question is, it's actually came from T+0. Do you think there's a realistic chance that other exchanges besides SBI, BC will use XRP as a main trading pair this year and in the coming future? And is it something that you guys are pursuing and support heavily?
I mean, I certainly support it, right, because it's great for liquidity. And I do think, again, for ours, it's great if you come in and come out of SRP just native, which is awesome. I don't know if other exchanges will do that. I still think the exchange space is, exchanges are businesses, right, and they have to follow the money. The vast majority of liquidity is still in Bitcoin. So when we get to a point maybe where our liquidity and SRP's liquidity starts to get close to that, I think that's a possibility. I mean, obviously we have a very tight relationship with SBIBC, so it's not a surprise that they did that. I don't think it's the norm though, but not impossible to continue to work.
Time frame on that?
I mean, look, I don't think there's a camera on, so I don't know if you should say this, but no, one of my goals for this year is to get to at least be as liquid as Bitcoin. So it's a big goal. I don't know if I'm gonna get there, but you know, we went 2 million a day when I started in January last year, 2 billion a day. We can do that again.
Thank you.
All right.
Hey, thanks for your time. Do you believe that the coin market cap as a whole will surpass any other markets like Forex, the stock market?
I mean, it's already surpassed a few markets.
How about the gold market?
I mean, gold, $7 trillion. You know, if you believe that Bitcoin use case is going to be really like impactful to gold, then sure, why not? What I would say is, again, it's really, really early. I think you'll see a dip, right, when these other ones go away. You'll see some of that money flow into the top 20, top 10. You'll continue to see the space grow. I think more than the outright market cap, again, just look for what these things are trying to solve. How big is the problem it's trying to fix? We're trying to fix a $30 trillion problem, right? So I'm not saying it's going to be worth $30 trillion. But that's a big opportunity. Right? So there should be value out there. So I always tell folks that if you're interested in the space, it's tech, what problems to solve, and then you can start to have some idea of making value down the road.
My first question is about the price. Going back, how you said controlling the price is not one of your priorities, and it's not even something that you want to do.
No.
So
We do not control the price.
yeah. So just just in theory, I have a question. So
By the way, if I control the price, I would have gotten to go from 3 to 70. I would have just left it there.
that'd be better. So my question is, in terms of the capability of XRP, if you want to take over these like Swift, right? If you want to take over their ledger, and if you are going to all of these banks and financial institutions, wouldn't it be better and more efficient if the price of XRP was much higher, so you would burn less XRP per transaction and could essentially take over larger markets?
Yeah, so you bring up a good point. It's like for a different reason, but it is a very good point. Today, if we wanted to run $1 trillion payment to SRP, we couldn't, right? It's not worth that much. So the price of XRP does make it more useful. It's got kind of this virtuous cycle. That has a ceiling. I mean, you get diminishing marginal returns on that. At some point, you don't need to make $1 trillion payment, so it doesn't have to be worth $10 trillion. But if you want to do close settle between two large institutions, it could be helpful for it to be more valuable. So certainly there's some utility there. But again, and I know I sound like a broken record for that, I apologize, but it's just how much, it's that velocity, it's how much is in and out, in and out, in and out. That allows a lot of cross-border transactions to flow through there, and increases the probability that we succeed.
Okay, so thanks for that. So just my next question is a bit lazy, but that's basically, you know, if I'm a bank or a financial institution, I come to you, so you can help me out. In your pitch, what's the difference between X-Rapid and X-Current?
So X-Current requires you to already have relationships with a few banks, right? So when you come to X-Current, when you come to us for X-Current, the idea is we're going to help you message and settle more quickly or instantaneously, as the video said. But you have to have an existing relationship with a bank. So the other bank has to be on the network. Otherwise, you got to go out and open up a bank account with somebody. And that's a long process. It's about 6 months. X-Rapid is a little easier, right? So, and for a small financial institution, maybe not regulated as heavily as a bank, like a Wayfair or Qualys, all you have to do is open up an account at an exchange. That's a lot easier, right? So, and that use case, by the way, is low value, high volume payments. Right? So you're talking about remittance really. We're not talking about enterprise like big payments. So they're kind of a different use cases. And again, the idea over time is that both those products just kind of meld into one. And when you start to go to folks, all you do is say, use X-Current, and you can use X-Rapid if you want, but you don't have to. That's the future vision.
Thanks for answering the questions. I applied for a data internship. Can you reference me?
Hit me up. Hit me up on Twitter.
Thank you.
So my question was, you were speaking earlier about the 3 sources of liquidity, the 3 colors.
Yeah.
There's one more source that I was thinking of for traditional fiat currencies, which is just consumer spending. Now, currently, right, it's used throughout the economy as a medium of exchange.
Sure.
Right, so currently, XRP does not have a consumer use case whatsoever. There would be no reason for me to own it other than as a speculative investment. Do you think that will, or to what extent do you think that will hurt your liquidity going forward?
Yeah, it's interesting. The consumer spending happens at the domestic level, right? You don't have like if I'm selling donuts to you, I'm buying. Most likely, I'm buying my materials locally, and I don't have any currency risk. My example really around that third pillar of the hedger is somebody who's sourcing parts from Japan. Has that risk, and they have a profile for how many parts they're going to need, so they have to hedge that risk out. Not to say that consumer spending wouldn't help liquidity a little bit. When I view this, right, I see it from you go spend your whatever currency, and the business in the middle is sourcing supplies from another currency, and then you need that liquidity in the middle, right? The consumer never really touches it. So it does kind of sit in a bit of a silo, if you will, from consumer spending. What is super interesting though, and again, I talked about the fact that this stuff only solves for trust if you don't have a trusted third party. In countries where you don't have a great monetary authority, and your central bank isn't great, you could envision a world where, and it doesn't have to be XRP, but it could be, two countries or large pieces of economies of countries start trading with each other with the cryptocurrency because it's more stable than their respective local currencies. That would be neat, right? And you start to string along a few of these, like that starts to get pretty cool. But again, that only happens in places where it's broken. In the majority, if you look at it from a GDP perspective, most of the world has fully functioning financial systems. So that edge case is not something that I think is terribly likely to show.
I have 3 questions for you.
Okay.
The first one is, what makes Ripple what makes it less centralized than what people speculate it to be, right? The move that you guys made the other day to put $55 billion in escrow, what's stopping you from doing it again as a Ripple holder?
So when you talk about centralization of the holdings, we own 55 billion XRP. I mean, that's public, that's on our website. In terms of doing it again, I mean, so the way the escrow works, right? We took 55 billion XRP, chopped it up into a billion pieces, to like a billion tranches, 1 billion tranches. We have 55 smart contracts, basically what they are. Every month, a billion unlocks. We use a little bit, whatever's left over, we lock up again, and you just have this rolling, unlocking, and locking mechanism in perpetuity, forever. Right? That should give markets a clear view of what we're doing with the XRP. It's all public, it's all the ledger, you can see all of this. It should give you a supply curve, really. So, more than anything, it should give you a sense of how soon most of this XRP will get distributed into the market. Now, look, we sell XRP a little bit every day. It's one of my jobs. We're now using it for investments with folks. And like I said, we use it to lend. The lending ones are really powerful. So, yeah, I mean, I think when people say, hey, you hold a lot of XRP, I'm like, yeah, you sure do. Where that's going to change over time. And now you have a clearer view, I think, of how that's going to change.
So, being that the Korean markets got listed from CoinMarketCap,
They're back now.
they're back now.
I don't know what coin. Oh, I think CoinMarketCap is like 2 dudes on that.
What's your price prediction for it?
No, I just don't like. Think about what would happen if I put a number on that. Yeah. My title is head of XRP markets. It's good. Everything's going to be fine. That's all I'm
It's kind of a doobie question, but which cryptocurrencies do you think are going to have the most value upcoming in 2018? And how do you get into investing in cryptocurrencies other than using Coinbase?
Yeah. So I don't know about 2018 in terms of value. Again, I always go back to use, utility, problem that you're trying to solve. There's some really interesting things that are happening out there. Certainly the top 3 are super cool. I think it's interesting to see what's going to happen with Bitcoin Cash, right? Bitcoin Cash is supposed to solve the scaling problem. I don't know if it's going to. I don't know if it's got the community around it. Certainly there was a lot of noise. I think that'll be interesting to watch. You know, I'm a big fan of Zcash. I think the technology is pretty cool. And Zuko is a really enterprising, smart guy. But you also remember, like, these projects have people behind them, right? And you're not just, in the early days, you're not just evaluating some like ephemeral, like this thing. I mean, there are people every day who work on this stuff. Some of them are brilliant. Some of them are okay, right? So I think good research around behind this. I was really disappointed when Charles Lee sold all his Litecoin. I was just, and I don't have any Litecoin, but I was like, man, your community's got to be really smart now, because you created this thing, and now you're out. It's like you just threw your kid out, right? Forget about the money, right? All these guys are rich. All these guys have more money than God. How are you going to say, I'm out? So I think you tether, no pun intended, but you tether the teams behind the projects and look deep into what they're trying to solve. And if it's got a good project, and it's got good tech, I think that's what drives it. But I think 18 is going to be an interesting year. But hard for me to tell what's going to go up.
And how do you get into investing other than using Coinbase?
I mean, look, there's some good exchanges. I mean, Bittrex is a pretty good exchange. You got Gemini here in New York. There's Itbit. Bitstamp is a wonderful exchange in Europe. Bitfinex has its challenges. Yeah, Bittrex. Yeah, Binance is great, right? I mean, they're always popping up. Sometimes it's hard for U.S. residents. Really hard if you're a New York resident. People don't like to take it. But, it's easy, really easy to get on Coinbase. They got a bit license now. And then from there, you can really just kind of move around, especially if they're crypto.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
First, I want to say I'm a very avid supporter of the Ripple Network. 80% of my portfolio is Ripple. My question is crypto and credit. There's a big use case for cryptocurrency here. When you use something like a credit card,
merchant pays a transaction fee, there can be double spending problems, there can be security problems, processing, it's very long. Do you see in the future, I mean, maybe you know of some companies, you're in California, right? So, are there any companies developing an app that it's like a revolving line of crypto credit that is bought instantly when, let's say, you want to Venmo somebody money? It's an incredible use case. I haven't seen it done anywhere.
Yeah. So I think the challenge with crypto credit is you don't really need crypto to buy anything yet, right? And not a lot of places take it. So your need for the credit is kind of limited. I'm interested in the use case where you use crypto as collateral, and you post it as collateral, and you can take loans. Right? Obviously, we have a lot of crypto, so I would love to be able to place this collateral, borrow money, and do these things with it. I think that's going to be a big one because now people they're holding some worth stuff, right? But you can't do anything with it. You don't want to sell it because things going on, right? So you're like, well, how do I use this asset? And there are some really interesting companies looking at lending money on the back of crypto as collateral. Really high loan to values are like 130%. So you have to have over collateralized loan. But if you have an asset just sitting there, it's not doing anything, right? And let's say you want to buy a house.
Yeah.
You can say, all right, well, I'm going to use this to buy this house instead of selling my crypto. I'm using the money to buy the house. It's a real hard.
First, I just want to say that I'm asking the question, not because I have a question, because I noticed no woman got up.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
Okay, so very.
By the way, one of the big problems in the space, a lot of white dudes. No, nothing against white dudes. I love white dudes. Love them. But man, like varieties is spice of life. Let's get this in there. So, not in this room, which is really cool. A lot of diversity in this room is wonderful. I think we need more diversity in the space. And not because diversity for diversity's sake, but because different backgrounds, different viewpoints, different, one of my real frustrations with Silicon Valley is it's constantly trying to solve problems that aren't problems. Like, I don't really need to get anywhere that much more quickly. I don't need somebody to bring me a slice of pizza. I got 2 legs, go get the pizza, fine. Right? So I think sometimes when you bring in more diverse folks, it's like, well, that's not really a problem. Why don't we solve this problem? Why don't we look at it this way? You solve this problem this way. Anyway, I think diverse viewpoints are great, and Silicon Valley is not a great idea, but we'll get there.
Can you talk about your decentralization strategy? Because you talked about that earlier, you mentioned it.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the steps you're taking?
Yeah, so I'm not the one running with the decentralization strategy, that's our product team. But at a high level, what we're trying to do, so look, the miners in Bitcoin, they've gotten much better. But initially, some of these miners were scary. The infrastructure that they were using to mine the stuff was like warehouses, open windows, Stefan Thomas, our CTO, has a slide on this where you're like, that looks like an abandoned building, it doesn't look like a miner. It's gotten much better.
Did it have free electricity?
Yeah, of course. There's a dam right behind it. It was great. That's what you want. You want water next to miners. That makes a lot of sense. So what we've done a few interesting things. Number one, the increase in popularity means that we have a bigger community around SRP, right? So when you validate a transaction on our network, you don't get paid anything. Right? Because validating transactions on the SRP network is very, very cheap. Right? You can run a node for $100 a month, right? So if you're a company, whatever, you run a node for $100, not a big deal. So why would you run a node? Right? In the past, there wasn't a point. We didn't have a lot of wallets. We didn't have a lot of exchanges. We didn't have a lot of market makers. We didn't have a lot of financial institutions using it. Right? That's changed now. So now, for instance, Bitso, the Mexican exchange, they run a validator. Bitstamp runs a validator, right? So slowly but surely, as our ecosystem grows out of people who use XRP for their business, they have a natural incentive to validate transactions. And it's cheap to do so. So they go ahead and do that. There's 2 ways you can do it. You can run your own node, right? Or we've contracted with managed hosting providers. So think of like Amazon, AWS. AWS isn't one of them, but folks like Olympus, at Tokyo, basically companies that run servers, right? And we host validators in those servers, in those server farms. And what we're doing is we're passing those on to other companies. So for instance, we had an investor who doesn't know anything about technology, but wants to run a validator. So super easy, we just pass that validator over to them. They go ahead and cover the cost, and a very enterprise-grade validator is spun up, right? So that's part of the process. Over time, you know, the UNL, I'm not gonna get too deep into the UNL, but basically it's like the node list that you listen to for transactions. We want to be off the UNL. We have no interest in being on that UNL in perpetuity. But again, as I started earlier, you can't build a network and get sort of all three, the scalability, the stability, and the decentralization. So this is our last step. And I do think once we decentralize fully, it's going to be really, really powerful.
I just want to take a moment to thank Miguel for answering all these questions. All right. Just if you guys want to follow us, we have CUNY Crypto, Facebook, CUNY Crypto. We're going to be starting a Medium account. One of the things I believe in is we should be contributing to the community as a club. And with Dan, he's going to be heading that, the publications. He's going to be our secretary as well. So we're going to be putting content out there as well to be a central hub for Baruch, CUNY, and New York students. And I think we had a lot of outside students that came into the event today. I think that was a pretty awesome event and awesome thing. And I'm really happy that we're such a diverse crowd, as you mentioned. It's really impressive. Also, please follow Miguel. He's wonderful at answering all of our questions.
Yeah.
You guys want to take a moment to do so? All right. And just to go over a few other things about things to come about the event, other things that we're planning. So firstly, we are doing a Baruch blockchain labs with IBM's Hyperledger technology. I want to give a shout out to Justin for really making this happen. Justin, thank you so much. Also, Jack Papa. Anybody who's interested in getting hands-on learning experience with IBM's Hyperledger, this is going to be one of our Baruch blockchain labs. We hope to do these with Ethereum, maybe even other technologies like Ripple. I don't know if that's possible, to learn hands-on, to get a little more of a hands-on course with that.
It is open source.
So we're going to be doing this with IBM. There's more information about that in the email I'll send out. There's a limited amount of seats. We also have a blockchain drive. They're interested in coming down about what's next in blockchain. Coming Distribution, they're a consulting firm in New York. We actually have a kid here, DM, who's got an internship there. And they're going to be coming down on March 7th. I'm going to send that all in the email to summarize. We're also doing an event with Alex. He was able to coordinate with the tax implications of crypto with EY. And that's going to be an event also this month. So we have a lot of things on the timeline. These are things in the pipeline. We have dates for it, speculative. Obviously, we have to go through the motions with the school. We're going to be doing that. This is the flyer for the IBM Hyperledger seminar. It's on Sunday from 12 to 4. It's a three-day seminar. It's a rolling week, so Sunday, the dates are listed. I'll send that flyer out again. These are just ideas also for the future. We are doing blockchain and cybersecurity with this new club that's coming up. I don't know what they stand for. And then we also have the Confucius Institute and the Crypto Club. We're going to be doing Understanding the Asian Market Influence and how to better read that as a US-based citizen, I'd say. That's going to be an interesting event we're projecting for the semester. Environmental concerns of crypto is going to be another interesting event. An accounting panel, we're going to get some of the biggest, hopefully an array of accounting representatives to represent the industry, do an industry night. I know Alex is going to be spearheading that for the industry interest of accounting. I know that's a very big representation here. I'm hoping to do maybe a law thing also. But also we love your suggestions. I'm saying this is an open community. And I think I want to make that clear. So anybody who wants to start something, if you have an idea, come forward. And I hope you can make the time to speak with me. And closing remarks, please get involved. Here we are, and hopefully you can just introduce yourself to me, send an email out otherwise. And this just concludes the event with Miguel. Thank you so much for coming out.